My stepfather threw me out the day before my trust fund unlocked. 24 hours before I inherited $8.3 million, he called me worthless and told me never to come back. He had no idea what was coming. Neither did I, until my phone buzzed with a bank notification that changed everything. Marcus Chen, age 18, officially rich. Time for some long overdue justice. Growing up in Portland's rain-soaked suburbs, I thought I had a normal childhood. Mom worked double shifts at the factory. My stepfather Dave managed a hardware store and grumbled about bills. We lived in a cramped duplex where the heater barely worked and cereal counted as dinner most nights. But there were good moments too. Mom reading to me before bed, Dave teaching me to change a tire. Everything shattered when I was 9. Mom came home pale and shaking, ultrasound pictures trembling in her hands. "We're having a baby," she whispered to Dave. His face lit up like Christmas morning. For the first time, I saw him genuinely happy. I didn't know it then, but I was watching my childhood end in real time. The baby would be his biological son. Tyler was born perfect. Golden hair, bright eyes, and lungs that could wake the neighborhood. Dave cried when he held him, something I'd never seen before. "My boy," he kept saying. "My real boy." I stood in the corner, invisible already. Mom was too exhausted to notice Dave's words cutting through me like glass. The message was clear. Tyler was the son he'd always wanted. Our house transformed overnight. Tyler's nursery got fresh paint and new furniture. My room stayed the same, peeling wallpaper and a mattress on the floor. Every sound Tyler made became a family crisis. Every breath I took was too loud. "Shh, you'll wake the baby," became the soundtrack of my existence. I learned to walk on tiptoes in my own home. Dave quit calling me son. I became the kid, or nothing at all. When Tyler said his first word, "Dada," Dave threw a party. When I brought home straight A's, Dave asked if I'd remembered to take out the trash. The message was crystal clear. Tyler mattered. I didn't. I was just the practice kid, the rough draft, before the real son arrived. By middle school, I'd mastered the art of invisibility. I made my own breakfast, walked myself to school, and did homework alone while Dave played with Tyler for hours. If I asked for help, Dave would sigh like I was interrupting something important. "Figure it out yourself," he'd mutter. So I did. I figured out everything myself. The worst part wasn't the neglect, it was the rewriting of history. "Marcus has always been independent," Mom would tell neighbors when I got into advanced classes. "He doesn't need much attention." Wrong. I needed everything they gave Tyler. Hugs, encouragement, someone to care about my dreams. But needing felt dangerous, so I buried it deep and pretended I was fine alone. At 14, I found work at Chen's Electronics, owned by my late father's brother. Uncle Robert never asked why I needed a job so young. He just handed me a broom and said, "Work hard, get paid fairly." For the first time in years, someone valued my effort. After school, I'd disappear into soldering circuits and organizing inventory, finally feeling useful somewhere. Tyler never had to work. Never had to buy his own clothes or save for anything. Dave made sure Tyler had the newest games, the best sports equipment, college funds. Meanwhile, I wore thrift store clothes and saved every penny from Uncle Robert's shop. The inequality was stunning, but I stopped expecting fairness from them. I only expected it from myself. Senior year, I applied to 12 universities in secret. Uncle Robert helped me with essays during slow days at the shop. "You write like someone with something important to say," he told me. I filled out every scholarship application I could find, knowing Dave wouldn't contribute a cent to my education. When MIT accepted me with full funding, I stared at the letter for an hour, afraid to believe it. I told Uncle Robert first. He hugged me tight and said, "Your father would be so proud." When I finally told Mom and Dave, they barely looked up from Tyler's soccer practice schedule. "Boston's far," Mom said absently. Dave's only comment, "Don't expect us to visit." Tyler, now 8, just shrugged. That night, I packed my acceptance letter away like a secret treasure. The day I left for MIT, Uncle Robert drove me to the airport. Mom hugged me goodbye, distracted by Tyler's demands for breakfast. Dave shook my hand like I was a distant acquaintance. "Don't screw this up," he said. As the plane lifted off, I felt something I'd never experienced, complete freedom from their indifference. For the first time in years, I could breathe fully. MIT was brutal and beautiful. My roommate Jake became the brother I'd never had, loyal, funny, genuinely interested in my thoughts. I threw myself into computer science and business courses, working part-time jobs to cover expenses they wouldn't help with. Every late-night coding session felt like building armor against the voices that said I wasn't worth investing in. I called home monthly, mostly getting Tyler's soccer updates and Dave's complaints about work. They never asked about my classes, my friends, or my dreams. During sophomore year, I stopped calling as much. They didn't notice. I spent holidays with Jake's family, who welcomed me warmly. Slowly, I learned what unconditional acceptance felt like from people who weren't obligated to love me. After graduation, Google offered me a position in their AI division. The salary was more than Dave made in 2 years. I also had Uncle Robert's electronics business, which I'd helped modernize with online sales. But the real windfall came from cryptocurrency investments I'd made with my MIT earnings. By 25, I had built serious wealth through careful planning and calculated risks. I never told my family about my success. They called twice a year, my birthday and Christmas, with obligatory check-ins that felt like business transactions. Dave still treated me like an inconvenience, cutting conversations short to help Tyler with homework or attend his games. I'd built an empire of success, but to them, I remained invisible. Marcus, the practice kid. At 28, my investments in renewable energy startups exploded. My portfolio hit 8 figures overnight. I still lived modestly, drove a used Honda, and donated quietly to scholarships for kids from broken homes. The money wasn't about luxury, it was about security and freedom. I'd never again depend on people who saw me as disposable. Then came the call that changed everything. Tyler, now 17, had been arrested for selling drugs at school. Dave was frantic, begging me to help with legal fees. "He's your brother," Dave pleaded, his voice cracking. "Family helps family." I almost laughed. Now Tyler was my brother? Now we were family? Only when they needed my wallet did I suddenly matter. I flew home for the first time in 3 years. The house looked smaller, shabbier. Dave had aged badly, gray hair, deep lines, defeated posture. Mom worked 2 jobs now to cover Tyler's endless expenses. Tyler himself was sullen, entitled, clearly used to being rescued from consequences. They gathered around me like I was their salvation, finally seeing me clearly because I held their solution. Over dinner, the truth spilled out. Dave's business was failing. Mom's factory was closing. Tyler's arrest was his 3rd offense. They'd covered up the others. Now they faced serious charges, massive legal bills, and potential jail time. They needed $200,000 for the best defense attorney. Dave actually cried as he asked, his pride finally broken by desperation. I sat quietly, watching the family that had never invested in me beg for my investment in them. The irony was crushing. Dave, who'd called me worthless, now needed my worth desperately. Tyler, the golden child, required my rescue. Mom, who'd ignored my achievements, now hung on my every word. I had the power to save or abandon them, just like they'd abandoned me. I paid Tyler's legal fees, not because they deserved it, but because I refused to become like them. I hired the lawyer, covered the costs, and watched Tyler get community service instead of prison. But I also set conditions. Tyler would work for Uncle Robert, learning responsibility. Dave would attend therapy for his obvious favoritism issues. Mom would acknowledge the years of neglect honestly. The transformation was gradual but real. Dave started calling regularly, asking about my work, my life, my thoughts. He apologized, really apologized, for treating me like I didn't matter. Mom wrote me letters acknowledging the pain she'd caused by always putting Tyler first. Tyler himself seemed shocked by having to work for everything, slowly understanding what I'd experienced for years alone. Today, I run a tech company worth $50 million. I still drive the Honda, still live simply, still give anonymously to kids who feel invisible in their own homes. My family and I have built something new, not perfect, but honest. Dave calls me son now, and means it. Sometimes love requires crisis to recognize what was always there. I'm no longer the forgotten child. I'm Marcus Chen, and I chose forgiveness over revenge because healing serves me better than hatred.